Okay, now are you ready?
Yeah, I was ready even before.
Hello and welcome back to All Things Real Time. I'm Hart. I'm joined as always by Lorenbo. How are you?
Terrible. Every day.
As always. I think
Every
you're not allowed to
day.
say that this time because I actually am terrible because I'm sick. I'm getting sick this week. I'm not having any fun.
You are sick in the body. I am sick in the soul because I have to read terrible design opinions. I'm forced to read it through them.
I don't
I'm
know that you are.
forced.
I don't know that you are forced to read it. I think you
There's
choose to read
someone
it.
pointing a gun. Someone pointing a gun. You don't see it. I'm literally I've been kidnapped by Hart. I mean, this is his
Yeah,
basement.
that's true. Yeah.
Send help.
It's a nice basement. There's windows. It can't be that bad.
Yeah, it's a very I have to say good taste in the in the interior design. Not bad art, good taste. But yeah,
What are we talking about this week?
patches, 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 and not the Earthstone card.
I was thinking of that actually. I was just thinking what a good thumbnail we could do with the little pirate, and then it would only be like 3 people that actually got the reference.
I mean, I think we just put it like on the corner, like
Okay,
patches the
like
pirate.
we did with the Bossa Wombat
The
last
poster art
time.
in Wombat, yeah, whatever the fuck that was, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Anyway,
So the news this week, big news,
yeah.
is there are 2 patches.
And one is for Starcraft. We got our yearly patch or bi-yearly. Wait, is it bi-yearly, like twice in a year, or once every 2 years?
Both, which is really confusing, but it means both.
Wait, what do you mean it means both? It's
So,
either
so
one or
if you
the other.
no, if I say bi-weekly, it means either twice a week or once every 2 weeks.
And how you're supposed to know which one it is?
I guess. Bi-yearly, I don't know. Once every 2 years or or twice a year, I don't know. Bi-yearly?
Yeah.
Biannually?
I mean,
I don't know.
I'm not doubting that the British man is correct about the English language. I'm just pointing out that there seems to be a
problem with the English language.
no, a flow. I'm just saying
No
it makes it definitely more confusing. So we are gonna start with the Starcraft patch because that's the one that is more exciting, more and then we are gonna go over basically a recap because it's not a new patch for Stormgate, but we wanted, since it's the beta is coming to a close. I don't know when this will be published actually, so I don't know if it's gonna already be closed or
will be shortly
not.
closing in any case. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think by the time you see this, it'll be the last weekend of the beta, probably.
Yeah, okay.
So.
If we don't fuck it up, we are gonna publish a recap. Basically, this is gonna be a recap of what happened in the meta, what we liked, what we didn't like, and how certain changes affected it.
Sure.
So let's start.
Yeah,
with,
the first change is on the screen right now. Big change, doubling the worker attack range, increased from 0.1 to 0.2.
Okay. So yeah.
Listen, we have a friend who likes building things in other people's bases where he shouldn't. He's probably not very popular.
I mean, he's very popular. Have you seen the views on Hearthstone video?
That's true. And he's a nice guy. But this change is not targeted at him, weirdly. I don't know if he...
I think it is. This is
the specifically patch.
Yeah. This is like the Bonan patch. No, jokes aside, it is not. Okay, at least on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, is that how you say it?
Yeah,
on paper. Yeah.
Say that, yeah.
On paper, this is supposed to make denying buildings, Terran buildings, with a probe or a drone or another SCB more consistent.
Yeah.
So very often. Before, what it used to happen was that you will click the worker on the enemy worker building the building, and then that guy would randomly go through the building in his building animation. I'm saying building way too much here, and your worker will stop attacking. It will get confused because the enemy was unreachable for a fraction of a second, and will stop attacking. This would happen a lot, and you could even abuse it. if you add the
so
racks
there's a
with
hotkey for
proxy racks.
halting building, so you can
Yeah.
spam the halt building, and it will reset like the bounce RNG of the SCV. And if you were building it like against some unpassable terrain, you could get your SCV against the unpassable terrain, so it couldn't actually get harassed. Is the idea with that?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
this is meant to patch that. We think it might affect Boanon's ability to not lose probes because the range will
It's
be
like,
slightly longer than he's used to, but we'll see.
well, actually, not only that, but there is a hidden buff here.
Yes.
So one that you have not thought about,
Yes.
maybe.
No, I thought about
So
it.
normally,
Well, it depends which one you're gonna say.
what happens is the following: Bolan pulls his first probe in the enemy base and starts building pylons and cannons. So the opponent, especially Protoss players that are very smart and and want to blind counter him, pre-pull workers to try and deny the spots where they know the cannons are gonna go up. And they often do this by A moving. So the interesting part is that since the attack range increases slightly, when two workers are chasing each other, one of them is gonna be stop slightly farther away now.
Yes,
Because he's
because they can't
attacking.
attack and move, right?
Which
So,
is gonna make it
yeah.
slightly easier for the chase probe to drop a pylon, which
Yep.
is already possible, by the way, in the current game. So it's gonna make that significantly, or at least partially, easier to do.
Yes, because they have to stop to attack. So every time it stops to attack, it will now stop from further away, giving the running away probe more space, basically.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've managed to get 5 minutes of content out of just the worker attack range change, so we could be here some time. This one is an interesting one. The worker in a radius and therefore collision with terrain/structures reduced. I think the only thing they're showing with this is that it lets map makers make some like interesting worker only parts, which I believe are already a thing in Brood War.
Yes, they're actually also a thing in Starcraft II, but they are very, very iffy with the way they work. So we already had something similar, but they were not exactly worker only. That was the problem. So the way they will be doing that was very often you were able to mineral walk through those. Now you don't need to do that anymore. Now you can have real worker only packs which are too narrow for anything else to get in except workers. I think this is an interesting change. It might just spawn cooler map, but it's overall completely useless for balance or completely
it's not relevant right now, and
yeah.
it might never work out to be relevant if this change doesn't make it into a map that makes it onto the actual ladder. Yeah, it's an interesting one, but cool to see. I think this is a nice thing that could get some more life out of the game, basically, and just that, you know, it's something new that people might find interesting to play around with. We'll see. What I will say is there's GIFs demonstrating like what we're talking about in the PTR like release. So I'll put that in the link in the description so that people can actually go and see the GIFs. I didn't bother importing them because I'm lazy. But that's a good way to demonstrate what we're talking about here. Reduced footprint size of Vespene geysers. I have no idea what that's about.
I genuinely don't know. I think if I understood it correctly, my best current theory is that this reduces the amount of space that you need to build a Vespene. So before you could gas block, you could put a probe really close to the enemy gas and the enemy couldn't build. And I think this is reducing that, but I genuinely do not know what they mean by footprint size.
But that would be the footprint of the assimilator or whatever, not the footprint of the geyser. So is it just that geysers are smaller now?
I'm
yeah,
not.
And Lily, producer Pad is saying that's how you defend a gas block. Yeah, I think they're right, because if the probe comes in to steal your gas, let's say Bonan, for example, wants to stop you making so many ravages, he could swoop in and steal the gas, and you can put a worker there to stop somebody else building on your gas. So I think this must just be like a change to the size of the geyser. I'm not sure. The Zerg Rocks one is again the same as the worker radius change. There's again a GIF. Go and check out the link. Basically, there's like Zerg Rocks in the map editor. So basically, you could have like rocks that you can't bust through but now that they lose HP off creep, they would eventually die. So you could have like areas of the map that are on a time limit before they become open. Again, that's something interesting, but it doesn't really affect things right now.
Yeah, I think this is another thing that just affects basically map making. It could be cool, but I don't really mind too much because it's gonna be hard. It remains to see how much this is actually gonna take. And actually, I wanted to point out that you can already do this. People used to do neutral spawning pools to achieve exactly the same effect because a spawning pool has 2000 HP and it
Yeah, and it will
loses,
bleed out over time.
yeah, will bleed out off creep. So I mean, it's nice, I guess, but it doesn't
Well,
really
but
change.
it changes kind of some things in that you put rocks on ramps and you can't put buildings on ramps, so maybe that is a very minor change. If you
Maybe.
wanted to block a ramp, you like you said, you could just put 4 spawning pools at the top of it and block it on a time limit anyway. But yeah, it's
Yeah, I
interesting.
mean,
We'll see if that shows up. And mineral fields now all have 500 HP and can be killed by collapsible rock towers. I
this
think,
once again a map thing. This
yeah,
does not mean because I've already.
yeah.
This does
Everyone was
not
like,
mean
"Wait, can I kill my opponent's
no, no.
minerals now?" No.
At least I hope that they thought of stuff like nukes and other things that do, or like a disruptor that do area damage regardless of the target. They don't have to
Mhm.
target. I'm pretty sure they thought of it, and I didn't test it myself because I assumed they did the job properly. But what is once again map maker only thing, this is gonna allow to make a collapsible rock tower that destroys certain minerals. I've actually played a map that was like that. It was the shitty map tournament hosted by Bfish. That was the actual name of the tournament.
Mhm. Mhm.
All of the maps were absolutely awful and explored some insanely bad mechanics of the editor. And one of them, well, in one infamous case, Winkel versus Fiant, Winkel kills the Fiant's gas by collapsing tower, and Fiant drops a bunch of question marks. Not sure what the fuck. He didn't even know that was
Where is
possible. So this
gas
was
from?
already possible with gases.
Okay, that's it for the general changes on this patch. I think we're going to
Yeah,
straight into the Terran ones. Are you ready? You
yeah,
excited?
sure.
There you go.
Advanced ballistic range bonus is reduced from 3 to 2. This is a liberator change. So what does this mean? Why was this made and what is this? So advanced ballistic range is commonly referred to as liberator range. This basically allows you to siege the liberator with a greater range, which previously was extra 3 range and is now 2. Why was this changed? The reason why this was changed was specifically TVP mid late game-ish.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. There were a lot of the spots on the map where putting a liberator behind mineral lines was extremely annoying for the Protoss to deal with because it required at all costs a Stargate unit. Now, if you know anything about PvT, you know that while Stargate is a pretty popular opening, is by no means the only one. And one of the reasons why Stargate is so popular is because getting a Stargate eventually allows you to kill liberators quicker, especially the ones that are inside bases and are really annoying. So, in my opinion, this is a good change, but I've already heard some Terran say that this is incredibly bad because Protoss can do this or that bullshit by themselves, and the T Rambis are so annoying, etc., etc., etc. Now, personally, I'm not invested into PvP. I'm a Zerg player. I think TVP is Terran favorite. I think Terran is definitely very annoying to play against, slightly too strong. So I think this is a good start of a change. And I think this is an elegant fix too, because it doesn't kill the
Yeah.
anything else. It doesn't kill the early game, for example.
Yeah.
It doesn't reduce the power of the Terran two base pushes.
Yeah.
But
Because those
this
already
makes it,
don't get the upgrade.
yeah, but already this makes it so that if you do survive that stage of the game, you are rewarded by having a slightly easier time.
Yeah.
So
I think it's relevant in TVZ because quite often you end up with Hydraling Bane, and Hydras are not actually that good at clearing out libs. I think this is a slight improvement for the Hydras, but again, this is like one range. It's not super noticeable, and it's not really like the intended point of the change,
yeah. Also,
but it
getting
helps.
lib range is a bit awkward in TVC.
Yeah, it's a
It's
fusion
not.
core upgrade, so it's not like a natural
Yeah, like
place to
people
get.
that people that Turtle are gonna do it anyway, but and this is technically a slight nerf, but it's not even that big of a nerf in a Turtle situation because this is mostly relevant with armies that can outmaneuver you. So in an open field, for example, Blink Stalker and stuff. So that's where it's gonna matter the most. Having those liberators slightly more far forward is gonna make it easier to play around them. But in Turtle situation, that this almost does nothing because the range was never the problem. It was the fact that there were a combination of liberators and tanks holding down a position. Going on, this is my favorite change of the patch.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one.
Ah, thank God! Finally, the god of Starcraft smiled upon us and realized how bullshit Widow Mines were. Okay, so Widow Mines, I think, at recent poll on Reddit, found out that Widow Mines are the most hated unit in the game.
Yeah, I believe it.
The other ones being Larkers, which are nerfed every patch at this point. Well, not in this one, spoiler. I don't think there's anything else you can remove from the Larker, actually. I think we are ready. We already did everything.
Yeah, maybe requires a hive to build them at all. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, so we already had plenty of things, plenty of nerfs to one of the most annoying units. But the Widow Mine, suspiciously, were left untouched for the longest time. Well, that's not the case anymore. So let's go through the actual changes and see what changed. Why I think this was excellent. One of this alone makes this patch one of the best patch I've seen from the Balance Council, if not the best. Now, invisibility while reloading now requires drilling close upgrade instead of a constructed armory. Now, this is mostly relevant in PvP, where cloaked Widow Mines were a pain in the ass to deal with because
so
they
like
force
an actual Terran opener is mine drop opener, where you go really quickly for an armory and get the mines in your opponent's base and forces them to revelate or make an observer, right?
Yes, absolutely. This is also very annoying if your opponent does not have, for example, if they open council as an example. Well, very often council is gonna have a robo, but that's
Yeah.
not ideal. Or very often you can force a recall because you need the oracle back home. And generally speaking, Widow Mine drops were one of the reasons why this Stargate Stargate first meta even came up to being. Because having those oracles, having those phoenixes, it's just so much better against any drop, really. Widow Mine drop, Hellion drop, stuff like that.
I have a question about this change. I'm going to show my ignorance. I haven't played much Terran, obviously. It says instead of a constructed armory, but to get drilling claws, you also have to make an armory, right? You can't make. Okay, you can just make drilling claws, but from a reacted factory with no armory needed.
No. You need the drilling. Cool. You get drilling claws with a tech lab on a factory.
Cool, but this is also pretty impactful because it means that whereas before you would go reactor factory to get like 4 mines as fast as you can now go. You now have to go tech lab factory.
Yeah, absolutely. This is specific. This is the part that actually affects TVZ the most. Not necessarily the change itself, because eventually you are gonna get it. But this is gonna make it quite awkward for the Terran to get a drilling close upgrade. And what this allows you to do is that in those mid-game situations, if the Terran did not sacrifice a bit of their build time to go for those drilling close, the mines left around the map.
Lilypad says you're wrong. You do need an armory. I thought you did.
You do need an armory? Well, it's
I thought you did. Okay.
Do you need an armory?
It's from a tech lab, but you need an armory. Yeah, definitely you do. Okay, good. Thank you. Am I redeemed now for saying that that Mutas did bonus to the light units now? Wait, okay, check Liquipedia. Let's see what Liquipedia says. I can see you googling it in real time.
Yeah, I'm googling this.
Because otherwise the factory cost change doesn't make any sense, right? I think you need both. Nearly certain you need both.
Well, you do certainly need the tech lab. Oh, does require an armory.
Okay, good. I'm okay.
I did not know that.
Chat spam.
I did not know that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lily.
Yeah. I knew that smart serves required an armory. I did not know that drilling crews required an armory. I never made the upgrade in my life. I hate mines, but
so yeah,
I did not know that.
it's worded a bit weird because it says instead of a constructed armory. It should technically be as well as a constructed armory. You can't get drilling
Yeah.
floors without constructed armory. I will say there's actually one thing it points out that's interesting, actually, is that sometimes in games people lose the armory and then their mines become visible. Whereas now, once you've got the
this
upgrade, they'll
doesn't
just
happen.
stay invisible. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, this doesn't happen anymore. But I don't think this is that big of a deal because
No,
no
it's not.
one
It's
ever
just
did it on purpose.
yeah, it's
The
just an
only thing
interesting
that
thing.
changes is actually Xayad map. In one of the scenarios in Xayad map, there lots of widow mine around, and you were supposed to kill the armory first to make them visible and then kill them. So that's the only situation I can think of actually. But let's move on because this is just
Yeah.
somewhat
So it's an
minor
interesting
change.
change. The next one is splash damage radius
Blast
reduced
damage radius
slightly.
from 1.75 to 1.5. Get fucked! Widowman abusers. So the problem with the Widowman, terrible fucking design, by the way, I fucking hate that unit, is that the Widowman is a unit that pays for itself very quickly, very easily, with no further commitment or resource, including human resources, such as attention or APM from you. You just make it, you put it in a random fucking spot, and that Widowman gets a shit ton of value over time. Why? Because you cannot bring your observer over. You cannot bring your like very often your overseer is gonna lag behind, or is gonna be in a different control group, or you don't have overload speed. There are like 20 different situations, especially where you could get invisibility so hard, in which you get fucked by a mine, you lose a lot of your army while you are moving. Neither of you is paying attention, but you lose half of your army because there was a random mine that you cannot see. That's incredibly frustrating to play against. And one of the strongest things that you could do after a mine push, or just generally in the mid game, was just to spread mines around everywhere. Made it so much harder to approach. They could defend Rambai, they could do everything. This at least alleviates some of that. Well, you just lost 25 banings because you were injecting. Because there is no warning, there is no attack command. Like once you read the sound because you got attacked, it's already too late. There is absolutely nothing. Like you are forced to constantly take a look at your army instead of injecting or doing other things, because otherwise you just lose everything to mines. It's so
But do you
annoying.
think the 0.25 splash change is that impactful?
Yes,
Okay.
because this is a radius.
Yeah. So it's actually a 0.5.
Yeah, it's a 0.5 diameter. Yeah,
Diameter. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I can do the
nerf
circumference, but I need.
and we like all of these what they are changed, like when we changed the EMP made quite a bit of difference. Like all of those things are quite a bit different.
Yeah, for sure. This one is interesting, and I thought it.
Well, their reduction is 1.5.
There you go. In my mind, well,
more or less, because it's 3 times pi. Sorry,
yeah.
Pi times 0.5.
Yeah.
Whatever.
We're assuming pi equals 3. Yeah.
Yeah, we're assuming pi equals C, like a real mathematician.
This one is interesting, and I kind of actually thought it was different the way I've been thinking about it, but reading it again, I realize it's not what I thought. Now gives an attack alert to the enemy when burrowing in range of enemy units. So I thought it was like every time it would target, you would get a notification. And that would mean that like when you were running your army around on the map, every time that they came across a widow miner about to get shot, you would get the notification. Because at the moment, you even see in pro games that people are like running their units around and they'll still get like targeted and they'll lose units to run a widow mine. It's not that. It's that if they run a widow mine into your base or drop it and start burrowing it, now you get we're under attack, so you can look there before it fires and pull away. But it's not every time it fires. It's only the first time that it actually burrows, and that's interesting.
Yeah, I know what this was made, by the way.
Yeah, I think this is a really important change. Yeah.
Like the reason why this was made was because very often you would have like widow mine being burrowed technically close to your armies. Or like for example in your mineral lines. That's the thing you're not thinking of. You will miss that because a widow mine sneaks because you are thinking of something else, or even just fighting and then just lose the army. At least this way you get a bit of warning. It's a nice change.
I think so, and I think it doesn't affect high level too much because high level Protoss are just so good at keeping like an eye on their minimap now. I think mid level, like let's say diamond level Protosses, can now at least have a fighting chance instead of just getting mineral lines wiped just because they weren't really looking at their base for, I don't know, 3 seconds. I think this doesn't affect Zerg too much because Zerg obviously always have a queen around, so the queen will give the we've engaged the enemy alert.
Yeah.
But for Protoss, it's more impactful because they wouldn't always have a stalker and nothing else will shoot the medevac.
Yeah.
So now they actually get an alert. This one
this
is really
quite
big.
good.
The next change is really big as well.
Increase
Increased
visibility of
visibility.
target line and targeted unit. You can find
Yes.
the PTR patch in the description, and that will have the graph that shows you. This is pretty good. You can actually see them.
Yep.
You can finally see Widow Mines.
Yes.
People are like, wow, like I already heard the certain 6K Terrans. Bitch and one. Ah, how dare you? It was already so visible before. How dare you nerf my completely bullshit unit that I couldn't even see before. This makes it, jokes aside, this makes it really easy, really
Clear. It's
makes
just
it
clear.
easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it easier and makes it clear that there is a mine that is hitting you. So at least like you know where they're coming from. It
So-
also makes it way easier to determine which unit is being targeted.
Yeah, and that's really big. That's what I was going to say. That's kind of, to me, maybe more impactful, because now you have a clear indication of which unit to actually micro and pull away. Whereas quite often before, I think high-level Zergs are pretty good at it, for example. But I think quite often before, you would pull like 4 lings because you're hoping it's going to be one of them. Versus now you'd be like, oh, it's that, definitely that one, and you'll pull that one. And,
actually, what
yeah.
what my biggest gripe with this was when you would have a lot of links going over Widow Mines because you were engaging and stuff. It was absolutely impossible to tell where they were shooting.
Yeah.
So what you do is just you just split everything.
Yeah,
Instead of, because you just try to split as much as possible. I hope that the Widow Mine goes on one of the splits because you cannot see it. It was completely invisible because it was covered by the link moving. So this hopefully makes it clearer. I really like this change. If your unit balance or if your race balance is determined
Determine how visible by
yeah,
by how visible a unit is. Yeah.
Is built upon a unit not being visible, but not visible as being invisible like it is, but as being I cannot see it, like me, the human, cannot clearly see the Widowmine shot. That's incredibly bad. So visual clarity, always a positive.
Yep. Let me say this
W
before we move
take.
on. I am colorblind. I can never see widow mines. I can never see nuke dots. Please, this is like a, what do you even call it, accessibility thing now? Can we just have the option to change the color? I know everyone will change the color to blue because it'll be way more visible. But like you just said, I don't think the game should be built around not being able to see something. I literally have a disability, which means I can't see it. That's not fair. And I've lost games to nukes, and I feel like every time like I'm getting bullied for my lack of color vision. It's not fair.
Do you think Solar is also colorblind?
Get him tested. I think we should get him tested, and I think we should replay those games. Any game he gets nuked in, replay it.
Any game that Solar gets nuked in, it just goes, well, I'm colorblind.
I
Moving
think
on,
there's maybe an argument for the shimmer of cloaked units as well. And one thing that they have changed that we'll see later is the infestor burrowed thing is now more visible. So
it's quite more visible apparently.
Yeah. So I think we maybe need to think about those as well, because I think it's always a bit silly, like we're saying, that it becomes how good you are at spotting a observer, and some people are just better at seeing than others. Doesn't necessarily feel the best. Unsure. So the final change is the armory cost reduction is only by 50 gas, and this is to give some more gas back, because obviously now you have to spend the gas on the drilling claws upgrade. Though our friend Eric has said Hellbat all-ins are coming back because the armor is only 50 gas.
This is the same thing I thought about. This can let you hit like 10 seconds earlier, unironically. And this is, to be honest, I do not think that Hellbat all-ins were that strong at high level. So I think this is a fine exchange, even though I think they're really, really annoying to it. I don't like the fact that if you don't scout it, and now you might just lose no, actually, think about it. I do like the fact that if you don't scout it, you can get punished. I'm not sure how hard you should be punished and how easy it should be to scout. Those two things are more problematic. But so far, I'm in favor of this. I do not think it should be too much of a problem. As a Zerg player, I say this, not as a Terran, obviously. Yeah.
We'll see how that one plays out. I mean, again, just to caveat everything, this is PTR, so these changes might not make it to live, though obviously we're fairly happy with these changes, so we're kind of hoping they do.
Yeah.
The next lot of Terran changes are these ones. There you go.
Yeah. Infantry weapons armor ups cost reduced from 100, 175, 250 to 100, 150, 200. So this brings it more in line with stuff like the air upgrades for Zerg, or just the upgrades for Protoss in general that were reduced in previous patches. I don't think this makes too much of a difference in...
so at tier 2 it's 50 gas, 50 minerals. for both upgrades, and at tier 3 it's 100 gas, 100 minerals if you're getting 3/3 both.
So you're like 100, 150, 150 when you get 3/3, but 150, 150 when you get 3/3 tier 3 upgrade is almost nothing. And
Yeah.
overall, it doesn't even affect the timing because most modern builds are optimized to get the upgrade immediately the moment you finish the previous ones. So you go +1/+1 into +2/2, for example, in
Mhm.
TVZ. I heard that this might actually impact TVP a bit, but I genuinely don't know how, so I'm not sure of.
Yeah, I don't see this being majorly different. I think
I don't think this matters too much, honestly. But
it's fair, but I don't think it's gonna like
it's one of
revolutionize
those
the
things that
meta.
yeah, it's one of those things that can make like certain builds feel slightly nicer, smooth the angles, punish you less for your
Mhm.
mistakes. Which considering that Starcraft is a very unforgiving game in certain things, I don't think these changes are unwelcomed.
Mhm. Now we get
So
on to
Cyclone,
the massive changes. Yes, the Cyclone.
you
Thank
want to
God
read it?
they're doing something.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm thinking, do any of these points need specific mentions, or do we just talk about them all on aggregate? Basically, weapon cooldown
The lock
increased.
on is
The
important.
lock-on's important. Weapon cooldown increased. So this is the non-locked on auto attack is now from 0.48 to 0.58, so it's now
So
slightly slower.
to be clear, this means that the attack speed is slower. The
Yes, it's the attack
cooldown
speed.
is the time between the attacks.
Yes.
Now, this change alone would not matter at all if it wasn't for the next one.
The next one is lock on now cooldown increased from 0 to 2.86.
Yes. So
So
this is
I don't know, the English
huge.
here is not perfect, but yes, the lock on is the ability on the Cyclone that it auto casts and does the like high damage mode. They
No,
changed it
right
in the
now
previous
I think it
patch.
would. I think right now lockdown is affected by weapon cooldown because lockdown just is you attacking. I think. As far as I understand, lock on
Mhm.
just means that you
So
attack. But
do you mean that you couldn't auto cancel if you do like a regular auto and then straight into a lock on? You can't auto cancel that.
no,
It would
I'm
still be that
pretty.
delay and then the lock
Now
on.
the cyclone got changed quite amount, but the thing that the lock on actually affects is that one you can shoot while moving, and two it
Mhm.
has higher range. But the actual DPS is
Ah,
exactly the same as attacking. Is like for all
okay,
intents and
okay.
purposes, it's just
It's an auto
attacking.
attack. Okay, so
Yeah,
you
so
mean
it
that
should
the lock
also
on
the
now
weapon
also does
cooldown.
less damage?
Yes, well,
Okay.
it doesn't do less damage technically because it
Yes.
depends on
Sure.
on the upgrade and stuff.
Yep.
But it does what's the
Yes.
word?
It attacks
It's
less
it attacks
frequently in
yeah,
that
less
mode.
frequently.
Okay.
Yeah. To compensate at least partially for this, they put damage bonus per weapon upgrade. They increase that from 1 to 2. So the reason for this is that they want to have to be the Cyclone to be a more generic unit that's viable even in the mid to late game.
Yes.
Right now, the Cyclone early game is extremely oppressive in ZVT.
Mhm.
His ability to kill Queen is a match. His ability to counter links was the most
Yeah.
problematic thing. On
But
paper,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, the reason it was countering Lings is because the lock on had no cooldown.
yes,
So,
exactly.
and there are kind of 2 points I'd like to talk about this. Essentially, the way it used to work is you would lock on, it would shoot a bunch, and then that unit would die and it would go on cooldown. Whereas now, because the cooldown is 0, even if your cyclones are attacking very inefficiently and all hitting the same ling, as soon as that ling dies, it will auto target the next ling. So yeah, it was way too generically good, but especially against lings, like you're saying, which I think lings are always kind of meant to counter the cyclone in a similar
Yeah.
way that they counter stalkers, but that
Well,
didn't really ever seem to be
that,
the case.
but not only that, but the fact that it was relying so much on the lock on instead of the weapon cooldown, like just the normal attack, meant that now, compared to before, Cyclones were even harder to catch, especially with the upgrade. Not only were they objectively faster, but now instead of partially attacking while moving, as if only when the lock on is
Hmm.
on, they would always be attacking as moving
Yep,
because the lock on had no
no
cooldown.
cooldown. Yep,
So you would need to stop very infrequently. You could just it was just very much easier to slipper away while having full DPS
yep,
compared to before. Compared to before, where you could just do the same thing technically with lock-on, but once the lock-on was broken, once those units died or whatever, or like they were out of range, out of vision, anything, then suddenly the Cyclone would stop attacking, and you would need to either stop again to relock on if you have the lock on available, or
or go
just
back to
go
the auto
away
attack.
without having the
Yeah.
the damage while
Uh,
moving.
And this to me, I think, is the second thing I want to talk about is the cooldown is historically how the Cyclone has always been. So everyone got used to playing around the lock-on. Let's say Cyclones versus Roaches, you would look at the Roach that's getting targeted and micro that one back. Now, if you did that, you are just losing DPS because you had one less Roach that was attacking, and the Cyclone could immediately retarget and switch to a different Roach. So
Yeah,
in a
they do
way, all of the micro that people got so used to doing to counter the Cyclone
yeah.
became anti-micro. And I've always found myself like microing units back for really no reason, because they would just retarget to a different Roach and I'd lose that Roach, and you can't
Well,
micro every Roach back.
it wasn't
That's the
even no
point.
reason. The idea was that before it was actually interesting counterplay, right? Like
Hmm.
the Cyclone locks on, you pull back. Either the Cyclone has to dive in deeper
Yeah, and
in
go
your
go
unit
forwards to keep the lock on. Yeah, yeah.
to keep the lock on, or go back and lose the lock on and lose quite a bit of DPS for a limited time, like 5 to 6 seconds until the lock on is back up again, right? Now suddenly there was no need to do it. Like the Cyclone was just a unit that would A move, and it was just trash everything. It was such generically good. Like it was very,
Yep.
very oppressive and it felt really bad. Now
Yep.
to compensate a bit for this, well, as we said, we have increased the way damage scales thanks to the upgrades. The other thing that they've done is giving them 20 extra health. Now I'm not sure how big of a change this is. It might actually break Cyclones again, hopefully not. But the idea is now they're gonna be slightly bulkier, slightly less DPS units, which doesn't really matter
Yeah.
if you surround, because once you get the surround, it they're still good. Like once you get the surround on them, you just kill them so quick. It doesn't matter. They're doing the HP. But what does matter is that now a good player is rewarded more, because if you're just catching straight hit from Ravagers, from Queens, whatever, you have slightly more HP pool to work
Yep.
around. But if you get surrounded, unlike before, where you could slip away, you actually get punished. So in my opinion, this is a very good way of changing the Cyclone. Now, I'm a bit. I have to urge a bit of caution. I don't know if this will fix the Cyclone.
Yes.
We will have to see how the Cyclone plays out. These are
Yep.
a lot of changes, and it's really hard to predict how they will affect it. But at least on paper, I like the design direction that many of these changes are going
Yeah,
for.
I do for sure. I think it's really interesting. A lot of these changes. I think it's yeah. I think what you're saying is basically that they might be more broken than anyone realizes, and they might take more changes than this even to kind of fix things.
Yes.
We
For
kind of
example,
saw
the other
like
thing that
with the lurker, let's say, where like people there were like many successive patches on the lurker before they have now seems like they've decided that it's actually fair and balanced. Whereas like they were doing lots of little changes for a long time where they were saying like this will fix the lurker. Okay, it didn't fix the lurker. Now this will fix the lurker. I will say I think this is their last change before they just give up on trying to rework the
yes,
cyclone and they put it back.
they stated. I think they stated.
Either they've
So
stated
what
it
they're
or we're
gonna
leaking, but we'll see.
Yeah, either they said that this is hopefully will fix, and if this doesn't fix the Cyclone, then we might see sorry, had a hiccup there.
Yeah.
The one thing that I'm worried about, because I'm not sure if I understand this correctly, is actually change number 4, the remove damage point.
I was literally about to ask you about that, yeah.
Yeah.
So the damage
So
point, for people that don't know, is the period after attacking before your next attack, right?
yes,
Oh,
so
wait.
what this
Yeah, I think that's
the
right.
thing is, now with the increased lock on, what this means is that you A move and then immediately turn around. You don't have to waste any time in actually starting to attack, because the damage point is removed. So you
Yes.
can there is no animation canceling anymore. You don't have to wait an animation. Now everything said and done, I think that the damage point was already pretty low. So if I understand this correctly, this should not break it or do anything weird. But if I understood it wrongly, this might just mean that the Cyclone is now uncatchable.
Well, because you can
So
stutter step it
you
infinitely,
can,
instantly.
you can stutter step infinitely. Like you can aim for a split second, and that immediately locks everything on and attacks at the same time, while not like literally losing a fraction of a second of movement. So that might be the thing to look out for. But I have to play. I haven't.
Yeah.
I've tested a lot of things with the Cyclone, but this one I could not feel any difference so far.
Okay.
So
Well, it might
for
actually
this
not
one,
be
didn't feel
different,
different.
especially with the change to the weapon cooldown. It might work out that it's like not feeling any different because they've move the number somewhere else, maybe. We'll see.
We'll
The
see.
next change is Raven. Interference Matrix can no longer target units already targeted or affected by Interference Matrix. This one, I think, is mostly a TVT and a TVP change, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, the idea is that if you think about it, they want to encourage spellcaster usage. So, in my mind, this is on the same level of change as what's it is the feedback change or the auto attack change for High Templars. The interesting part about this is that on one hand, it makes it easier because you can now rapid fire just everything, right? Especially on stuff like TVT, like rapid firing matrices all the tanks, or like Colossi and stuff. And this might encourage mass Raven play, but you disappeared. But at the same time, the possibility of being really abusable or being really oppressive might also be there. I think this is gonna be a good step in the right direction. But this one, another one of those changes, or it might be deceptively small. As in, it looks really small, but actually might like spawn some abomination of a build or a lone or something. The one nice thing that I will say is that now you cannot target units that are already targeted, which makes it easier to rapid fire, but also prevents like you kind of have to time it now better, right? If you want to matrix a specific unit multiple times, it's interesting. Once again, I think this is a very minor change, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. So producer pad has pointed out. I think it's what you're getting at with your like last bit you said. You can't now re-matrix something. So if there's like a
Yeah,
Colossus that you can see has like the tiniest slither of a bar of matrix left, you can't reapply it and get the full cooldown. And you have to wait for that to run all the way off. So the Colossus, let's say, will have like a small window,
it will attack at least
and
once,
it can
most
attack
likely.
once, let's say, before you can get back on it and
Yeah.
rematrix it. Yeah, an
That's
interesting change.
particularly I think that's particularly annoying with tanks, most likely.
And I didn't
Because
crop the feedback change, but that one is basically just that now you can't feedback a unit with 0 energy.
yeah,
So when you, let's say there's I don't know, 3 ravens, before you couldn't really spam feedback because you might hit the same raven 3 times and it wouldn't do anything. You would just feedback 1 raven functionally
yeah.
while using all of your energy. Whereas now you can feedback
You can just rapid fire
because it won't
feedback
have,
and
yeah, you can
do
rapid fire and
everything.
it won't hit the one multiple times.
I'm not sure how I feel about the fact that these changes are targeted, by the way, to rapid fire, which is not in the game, at least officially. Remember, it's technically
Yeah.
an abuse of the command scheme.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
We might need to explain what rapid fire is, because some people might not even be aware of it.
yeah, rapid fire refers to binding a key that okay. So if you have an ability that is binded to a key, let's say Q, for example, you also bind the same button for the ability to a secondary function, and that secondary function is accept. I don't remember what it's
It's
called
called
exactly. Basically,
target,
target.
yeah, select
Yeah, accept
target
target,
selection.
select, something like
Yeah, I think it's
that.
called that.
What that means is that in one key press, I press Q, it both triggers my use of the ability, but also a click. So that is basically the same thing as clicking on the ground. Like normally you press Q and then click on the ground to aim the ability. This does it so that the Q itself also automatically clicks. And what that means is that you press Q and all of your bulbs go off immediately. For example, that's the most used case.
Yeah,
Or all
bows, creep tumors. Yeah,
more important, ghost snipe.
yeah. So
Or as it's now known, steady
steady
targeting.
targeting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it also interacts with the cranked repeat rate, which a lot of people have, which again is like not officially a thing. Like you have to go to the registry to like edit to really reduce the
Yeah,
repeat rate
recheck
really
it.
low. Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think at this point though, because it's not Blizzard doing the patches, it's ESL. ESL are not too upset to like recognize the reality of
Because
particularly like
everyone,
the pro gaming scene. You know, it's
yeah,
written
the
by
pro
pro
gaming.
gamers. There won't be anyone in the server that doesn't have these things enabled.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just weird. I feel like like you can see the difference. So moving on to Zerg, we really need to speed this up part.
Yes.
Archery layer hive. Creep speed the radius increase from 12 to 13. This is nice just to be able to wall off certain maps in ZVZ. Because now you previously needed that creep tumor. This will spawn again, I think, the problem of spines at the corner of archeries. It will also make it slightly easier to block ramps with queens because you can now transfuse easier. And that's about it. That's also makes it harder to proxy racks or cannon rush on the very edge of
Slightly.
the creep.
Yeah.
Slightly harder, but it
Normally
doesn't
those things go before the
way before the
way
creep is
before
there. Yeah,
the creep is there. But the next change
yeah.
is to the infestor. Fungal growth range increased, so this is a reversion of a previous change. But the revision range while burrowed reduced from 10 to 8. Unburrow time slightly increased, but this is basically slightly
More
increasing the
normalized.
range of the
Yeah.
random delay. Yeah. And
No,
burrowed
there,
infestors is now more visible when moving. Yep.
it reduces the range of the random delay, but
Yeah.
it
Towards a higher
reduces it
number.
towards a higher
Yeah.
average.
So on average,
Uh,
the unburrow is slightly slower.
but it's also more consistent.
Yeah.
The fungal growth range reverse was just because it was completely impossible to play against certain things. It was incredibly annoying to play against Ghost because you would get outranged. It was incredibly annoying to play against, like for example, Tempest or High Templars. You couldn't catch them with the infest. It was really really annoying. The second part of the
Yeah.
nerf is literally affects one person in the entire world. I think the only person that's gonna notice this is my man Jonas Otala. My man Serral is gonna be that this is literally a Serral nerf. Like they saw
Yeah. They
Serral
literally
on
saw the
Katowice.
finals of Katowice and they were like, "No, we can't have this."
Yeah, bro. Like I don't think anyone else is gonna notice the difference. This is a Serral aimed nerf, which is insane. Because I think this is like the 10th Serral aimed nerf at this point. We had the Burrowed Roaches too, famously, that got gutted because Serral was too good at using them.
I don't love this
Now,
change, to be honest, because I watched the the final games of Katowice, and I thought I don't think Sarah wins them if the borrowed infestor is that much worse.
well, with the ban change, that also might
Yeah,
affect it.
we'll
Of course.
see. I'm a bit
Yeah,
worried about
the
this
leap
one.
also. We'll see.
Yep.
We'll see. Going over, this is an exciting change. Nah, I'm kidding. Kinda. Eric was really excited about this one. I can tell you that. So, Overlord. Transport Overlord's morph time increased from 12.14 to 15 seconds. Transport Overlord move speed increased from 1.1 to 1.28 or from 2.83 to 3 with overall speed. Pepe, this is the time of doing the German taxi. We are German taxing everything. No, okay, this is the reason why they increase the morph time is to compensate for German taxi. So
Yep.
this means that your overall time is gonna
You're
be
not
more or less
hitting.
the same.
Yeah, you're hitting at the same time
Well,
because
no, you are
the
gonna
time it
hit
takes you to
it.
fly there is
Yeah,
gonna be the
you are gonna
same as
hit
the morph time.
earlier actually because the limiting factor for most of these builds is actually queen number. So
Mhm.
you can get the overlord, the dropper lords way
Ready
before.
before the
Yeah,
queen
like
is
1 minute
yeah.
before even. Like it has no particular limiting, but this will prevent stuff like quick cheeses, like
Yeah,
dropper
limb
lord in the
drops. Yeah.
mains. Yeah, like weird stuff that's not intended. So I think this is generally above to dropper lord. So that you can make them in the mid to late game where you don't care about the morph time, but the slight speed increase allows you to actually, use them more effectively. Because dropperers have historically been almost useless in the mid to late game. We have seen very little play. I think this actually might become problematic in in ZVZ because I've already
Okay.
seen
Yeah. Okay.
some sketchy roach drops.
hmm
I hope this does not become the new weird meta.
Let's move on to the Protoss changes. Let me get those up. There we go.
Yeah.
Observer build time reduced by what's that, like 3 seconds, 2 and a bit
Yeah.
seconds, from
Yeah,
21.43 to 1786.
it's actually more 3.5, almost four
Three and a half.
seconds.
There you go.
Yeah,
Health shields increased from 40 shields, 20 health to 40 No, let's see the way around. From 40 health, 20 shields
No,
to 40
40.
health, 30 shields.
Yeah.
10 more shields is the change.
Yeah.
Model
10 more
size
shield.
increased by 10%, and surveillance mode animation speed increased by 75%. So it's slightly bigger. It sieges, I guess sieges and unsieges slightly quicker.
Yeah.
Builds quite a lot quicker, and is 10 health more tanky. Does the 10 health of tankiness affect much at all?
Well, I can tell you what it affects. It doesn't get one-shotted by a bile anymore.
Ah, okay.
It doesn't get. It doesn't die to Widowmine Splash anymore.
Okay. That's actually a pretty interesting big
Yep.
change.
Yes, both of those are interesting changes. I'm not sure about. Well, you won't exactly go around sniping overlords. Sniping observers with biles. So
No,
that
but
I'm
it
not
did
particularly
happen, but
worried.
mostly accidentally. Mostly when
Yeah,
the Protoss
mostly
is running
accidental.
away, the
Yeah, I
observer will
mean,
just get
like,
like just
I,
clipped.
I'm never gonna be like, wow, I didn't kill the observer. I can't believe I lost this game due to balance. I'm like, yeah, nah. But yeah, model size increased by 10%. That's just uniforming it to make it slightly more visible overall. The build time reduces a nice change. A lot of people have suggested stuff like that. It feels like they are really powerful, but they're also one of those tools that distinguish a really good player from a mediocre one. So I'm all in favor of buffing skill expression that doesn't actually change most of the interactions, right? It doesn't actually make it harder for you to kill something. It doesn't actually make a immortal or lean stronger, but it will make it slightly easier to defend from mutas or from drops, etc. Right? For example, it's a nice change, I think. Also, like, it's not that big though. Sentry. Damage increase from 6 to 6 plus 4 versus shield, and light attribute tag removed. This is to uniform PvP early game, to make it more stable, to stabilize it.
Mhm.
This will encourage sentry openings. I think this is a quite sizable buff.
Yeah. So
Like, this is
just
a...
explain the
Yeah,
interactions with this unit really quick. So the Adept does bonus versus light. The Hellion
yeah.
does bonus versus light. The Oracle does bonus versus light. Technically, Phoenix does bonus versus light. The Mutalisk famously does not do bonus versus light. Don't know if you knew that.
Yeah. Well, not so famously, apparently, because someone didn't know. Uh, I'm
So,
fine with
but
that.
mostly I think this is for the Adept. I don't think Hellion openings are that common, but it could see that interaction.
Yeah, I mean, it's a decent change. It doesn't affect like doesn't break the matchup. I think, at least we might see a lot more stable play. So I think a lot of people might really like this
Mhm.
this change for PvP purposes. The one thing I will say, the light attribute tag being removed makes Sentry All-In quite a bit stronger against Zerg, I think. Because one of the biggest counters to Zerg All-Ins, to Sentry All-Ins usually, was like Link Bane Ravager. That was the combo, like Colossi Sentry
Mhm.
All-Ins
Yeah,
and stuff
sorry,
like
yeah, of
that.
course, yeah,
And Balings do bonus
yeah.
damage to light, and them not being able to do that much damage anymore to Sentry, significantly less damage, in fact,
Mhm.
might be bigger than it looks. We might see a bit more Sentry pushes, which are already pretty strong, especially like against what I'm worried about is specifically Glaive Adept into Immortal Sentry Adept push, which is already a pretty strong build popularized by Max Packs and by 20 Russian Protoss on ladder. And this might actually be bigger than it looks, but we'll see.
The last change on this list is Pylon sight range increased from 9 to 10. I think this is really just so that you can use them as like spotters on the edges of the map more a little bit. I don't see a massive, impact from this change.
Yeah,
Really.
mostly PvT changes, I think. Just spotting, like Widowmine drops again. There are a lot of Widowmine nerfs, like hidden Widowmines drop nerfs. Very based.
Yeah,
Very,
I'm not
very
against
based.
it. I'm not hating on it at all. To be
Yep.
honest, I think that's good changes. That's
Yeah.
it for the changes. Really, I mean, there are some what they're calling like bug fixes. We kind of mentioned
Yeah.
High Templar Rapid Fire. Lurker subgroup priority increased, so now has
That's
priority
kind
over the Ravager. That's pretty good.
that's kind of cool, because before you would unironically kill your own Ravagers because it was so annoying to deal, especially if you had Burrow researched. You will try to burrow, if you had a Ravager
Yeah,
and a Larker in your group, you will try to burrow the Larker, will burrow everything except
the
the
Lurkers.
Larkers.
Yeah.
completely like clown
Yeah,
fiesta.
I've
but
lost units. I've lost games to this before. It's so stupid.
I also lost games to this. It's really annoying. Yeah.
And the other one is activate generating creep on overlords now activates for all selected overlord types, not
Quality of
just,
life
let's
change.
say, dropper lords or default lords. So if you are pulling like 3 normal lords and 3 dropper lords, if you activate creep, it's going to be on all of them as opposed to like 2 separate things.
I mean, I don't think this
It's
matters
quality
too
of life.
much.
It's not massive. Yeah.
Yeah. So the one more thing I wanted to add: map change. The map pool is gonna change.
I don't have
Still 9
pictures of the
maps.
maps at all. Yeah.
They are terrible. Don't even bother. My take on them is that I don't know why we are doing freestyle maps. We are encouraging freestyle map. I know that people think that this will make the game exciting. I think I completely disagree. This will just make it terrible to play. But sure, if everyone wants to see the dumb maps that are terrible for the game, let's go. They're so imba art. There's one that has a second base in the main. That's a gold.
And these are already on the PTR ladder?
Yes.
Like these are the new ladder maps? Really?
Yeah, these are confirmed. There is another one that has, what is it? 6 by 36 rocks in the map. 36,
like the big
2000
rocks?
HP. Yeah, the big rocks. 36 rocks on the map.
Okay, fantastic.
It also features, I think, like 6 different mineral walls. And half of the map is it's
because
like,
everyone
think
loves
of
the mineral
golden
walls.
wall.
After Golden Wall,
Yeah, but like
after
20 times worse.
after
Sometimes.
Radu set, they were like, we need more rocks. That's what everyone loves.
Yeah. And then of course we have the evergreen cancer style. So we have hidden, like very easy to take hidden bases. I think we might even have a highland. No, that's the Amogus map I'm thinking of. We have what is it called? I can't remember.
I can't help you. I haven't seen them.
What do you call not corner bases? A base inside of your natural that you can take for free. What the fuck is it called?
Pocket base.
Pocket bases. Pocket bases everywhere. Galore, as always.
So I'm not the biggest fan of the current map pool. It sounds like I'm not going to be a big fan of the new map pool either.
Yeah.
Listen, I realized I've done something dumb. I forgot to mention that we're on Spotify now. I'm going to have to put a thing at the start of the video to say, like, we're now on Spotify.
Yeah. We are now on Spotify if you want to listen to us. There if you prefer it.
While you're jogging or making love. There are loads of times. Those are the options.
Someone is making love and you hear in the room my voice talking about the design for 30 minutes. And you're like, sweetie, are you sure? I'm like, yes.
It's got a good rhythm. Yeah, good energy. I don't know. What do you use Spotify for?
Every time Lorimbo screams, that gives you the timing. It's like doing CPR, you know, chest compression. That you do it to 170 BPM. Like stay alive. Usually it's used. Stay alive. Stay alive. Yeah, instead of that, you just have me screaming over the brutes. This is shit.
Anyway. We're going to talk about Stormgate, and I made you do some homework for this one. So the structure for this one is going to be, again, because this is the patch episode, it's going to be 3 things you liked from the patch, 3 things you didn't like from the patches, and 3 things you'd like to see in the patches next. So this should be 3 things
I liked
that you liked. We're going to do liked, then didn't like. I don't know.
Okay.
I had a boss who called it a shit sandwich. So he would say something nice about me, and then he would be like, "This is all the things you fucked up this week," and then he'd say like something else nice, and he said, "There you go. That's the shit sandwich." And I said, "Thank you." Delicious.
Okay, so Infernals. Hellspawn Resurgence Animus cost increased from 25 to 40. Now, there was another similar change from 15 to 25 previously. I chose this one as indicative. It's really the same change twice. The reason why I really like this change is because, in my opinion, it positively impacted the way Macro feels as Infernal. Before Hellspawn Resurgence was a broken ability that no choices behind it. You had to use it constantly. It was so good there was no reason to not spam it constantly. Now
So
there's a lot
you might need
more
to explain what the
decisions.
spell does, just for
Yes,
people who aren't
true,
so in the loop.
absolutely.
Yeah, go for it.
So, Hellspawn Resurgence allows you to immediately fully charge one production building. So production buildings for Infernals have charges that you can use.
Mhm.
And this puts a building back at 3 charges, which is the maximum, no matter how many you
So
have.
it's similar to lava, but instead of like injecting and then you wait a bit, you can just cast
It's
this and
instant.
it does it instantly. And then
Yeah,
it's not like you're going around and using this all the time. This
yeah.
builds, the animus builds up as you kill stuff and lose units, that sort of
So
thing.
basically, the
And then
reason
you
why I
can
really
use it.
liked it is that before it felt like overpowered larva and even more annoying to use. That you had to constantly spam this ability. But actually increasing the cost, the unintended, I'm not sure if it's intended or not, but other than just nerfing the ability, created the interesting scenarios in which you realistically want to preserve your animus for the turret in the early game, or for the dragon later on, or even for Nightfell infestation in most cases. So the interesting part is that this went from making most of the spells useless compared to this one, to creating a lot of interesting choices in which one you actually want to use. And I really, really like that. I think it's a great change, and I'm glad they did it. Even though it's a nerf to the race that I played the most, obviously. I think it was excellent, an excellent choice.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
the
I
second
agree with
and
you
the
on this
third
one.
one that I have, the reason why I like this, because I thought that these were very elegant solutions to serious problems that the game had. So let's first talk about the Hellborn, because I think that's the easier one to explain.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the way they fixed the Hellborn, what was the problem? The Hellborn itself, as a unit, felt really unimpactful. One Hellborn did almost
Yeah,
nothing, and 10 Hellborns tend to get stuck in each other.
yeah. So the
So
damage was kind of mid. They
Yeah,
were really clunky, like you said. And then when they did shoot, I just remember like the first game I played against them, and they like 4 of them shot a lancer, and it didn't even get to like half health, and I was like, okay, well this unit is not great. That's fine. I'll ignore it.
it
They were
didn't do
also
anything.
really squishy, and I was having a great time just like sending lancers to go chop them up, or
Yeah.
planes or something. And again, this was at a time the pre-patch when the plane DPS was also really high. So yeah.
Yeah. So that these units were completely useless. They were like somewhat useful in very niche situations,
Mhm.
in which you will make a couple of them to actually, start nibbling away at the Vanguard army mostly. But they were almost completely outside of the meta. Now, though, they basically made every unit 1 point times everything. So it costs more, but it's stronger in HP, supply, health, and damage. The more important one is the damage and the splash damage. The reasoning for it is that by doing this, while technically speaking, you get the same damage per cost, or a slight increase, I think, a very slight increase. You now need severely less Hellborn to achieve the same result, which means that you have more actual physical space to move around.
Mhm.
Your Hellborns don't get as stuck as anymore. If all of your Hellborns are focusing one unit, that unit dies and it does significant damage. So focus firing is more impactful because you need to do it with less unit to achieve the same effect. There is quite a bit of benefit. I didn't think it was gonna matter as much as it did, but it really turned
Yeah.
the elbow around and made
That
it
is
a
what I
pretty
was
good
about to say.
change.
I remember when this first came out, you were not keen that you're not sure this was a buff, and you weren't really sure how this was going to affect things. But I think, yeah,
No, I
on
mean, I have to
reflection,
be honest.
it's
I have to
yeah.
give credit where credit is due. I wasn't completely convinced by this, but I was wrong. This change was actually pretty good. I think this solved at least partially the problems of Hellborns. It did, unfortunately, make some other problems worse. Like, for example, the fact that Hellborns constantly cancel their auto attacks.
Yeah.
Now you
So
really
when you were
notice it.
canceling an auto attack that was going to do 12 damage, it's not as big of a deal as when you cancel an
Yeah,
auto
one
that's going
out
to
of
do 100.
15. Yeah, 1 out of 15 out attacks cancel is not that big of a deal. 1 out of 3 is quite a big of a deal, right? And the damage change. So that's, but hopefully that is more a problem with the auto attack canceling and the animation how it
Yep.
works, compared to this change. I think this change was
Yeah.
excellent.
The wind-up time is really crazy on these units. It's multiple seconds, basically, right?
It's 4 seconds.
Yeah, it's crazy.
4 seconds. For comparison, like sieging a unit, like a siege tank, is like, I think, less than half than that.
Yeah, and then they shoot fairly quick after that.
Yeah.
Your other change was the Gaunt. Weapon bounce range decreased from 5 to 3.5. You might need to explain a little bit of the background on this one as well.
Yes, so what does... Yeah, this is why I said let's start with the armor, because it's easier to explain. So this one is, in my opinion, one of the most complicated changes to explain and understand properly the impact that this had on everything. So what does this mean? First off, let's actually explain what this does. So the way a gun works is that it shoots a projectile that hits a unit. After the projectile hits the units, it looks for a secondary and a tertiary target, but mostly a secondary target in an area around the first unit. Then the projectile goes to the second target and does this trick again. So it just looks around and searches for a third target. It does it up to twice. So from 1 target to 3 targets.
Yeah, 2 bounces, 3
This,
targets.
this decreases the range in which the bounce can occur. Now, I thought, and I said this, that this was a very, very elegant. Why? Because this nerfed Gaunts significantly in some of the most annoying aspects of them, without actually nerfing them in most of the situation where you want nerfed Gaunts to be good. What do I mean by that? Well, one of the biggest problems with Gaunts before was that no matter what they attacked, they would basically attack everything. So you would be attacking a structure and you would hitting all of the units behind. So if you were close behind a wall, that actually helped him, not you. Because he would attack your buildings and all of the bounces would keep hitting everything, even if you were quite far away. Or you could outrange a turret, or you could do, especially around shrines, this was problematic.
So if the turret was placed poorly, you could hit the command center and it would bounce onto the turret and hit the turret.
So ideally, you want to have turrets behind shrines, right? So you can have your units in front and then the turrets behind. But if you did that before, you will just lose the turret to pure Gaunt spam, because you will hit the shrine and also hit the turret with the bounce without getting hit back. This made all Orleans stronger in Inferno versus Inferno, but even Inferno versus Vanguard, you could hit all of the Bob repairing a building way easier. Like even if it was another building quite far away.
It was even worse than that. Yeah, it would bounce from the command post to Bob's the mining, like on the minerals, right? So you would lose entire mineral lines for them not hitting your mineral line. Felt awful.
Yeah. Felt awful. Also, the situation in early game where splitting now against Gaunts is much more rewarded compared to before. Before, no matter how you split, unless you like did a giant split, 5 is quite a big range in this game. The unit will keep bouncing, but now it's way more realistic to split your units.
To give an example, let's say it's the early game and you have 3 Gaunts against 3 Gaunts. You can now spread your Gaunts apart so that if they hit one, the middle one, let's say, it won't bounce to either side. Whereas with 5 range, like you're saying, you have to set them really far apart to make sure that they don't hit bounces on both.
This was an incredibly elegant nerf, in my opinion. Nerf the Gaunt in all of the quote-unquote right places without actually gutting the unit or just making it worse overall.
Straight does 1 less damage or something.
Yeah, exactly. I really liked I cannot tell you how much this affects it. It's actually quite noticeable. You notice this in the fact that Tornets are stronger because of this. Because now splitting is stronger. Spriggans are stronger, even though they're still bad. But now they do significantly better against Gaunts, for example. There is so much more you can do now that previously you couldn't. And I think this is out of all the 3. I think this one was the one that I found the smartest. Like actually, really smart way of handling a problem.
Let me just check what. I'm hoping these 3 are the 3 that I want. Is that right? Okay, cool. They seem teeny tiny. I might make them a little bit bigger. Production value.
Yeah, they are pretty tiny. The interesting part is that I think at least 2 or 3 of these changes are terrible.
Well, I did them for you. We need content, no? It's
I
the name of the
consider
game.
putting I consider putting two of these in the worst ones
Okay,
actually.
okay. I'll start at the top. Why not? Shadowflyer now deals 125 damage to its primary target and 50 damage in an area of 3, down from 125 in the entire area. The area wasn't changed, it was always 3. This one, I will say, I like it. There needs to be a bit more explanation, actually, maybe for this one. The Shadowflyer, in this game, air units can't stack. So this is going to seem weird when you come from StarCraft. You can try it now in a custom game if you load in Phoenix or Muters or Corruptors. It works for any unit, actually. If you spam click, like hold your mouse still on one location, spam click, you'll end up with what looks like basically one muter. You can have 50 and they'll cram into this, as small of a space as they can. And this means in StarCraft, for example, if you fly over a Widow mine, they'll take all of the damage in that area, will apply to all of the muters because they can slightly overlap. And this has meant that you ended up with micro like magic boxing, which is hold positioning your units so that they collide. So you end up with a more spread pattern instead of all of your units, stacking on top of each other. And then yeah, you're gonna take massive amounts of splash. In this game, you'd have to worry about any of that. So I don't know, ignore the last 2 minutes of me talking. They will collide and block each other and all of that sort of thing, which means that yeah, the area splash damage that the Shadow Flyer does was already kind of less impactful, but 125 was a lot, and 3 area was still enough to hit quite a lot of units at the same time. I put this on the list only because I think it's much more intuitive, and I think dealing all of its damage in the splash looked really weird in that you could lose like hornets, like a hornet over here and a hornet over here, and they would both take the same amount of damage. You could lose both. When now there's a little bit more survivability to those units. I think it made, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it made Shadowfly versus Shadowflyer a little bit better, and hopefully it will make Spriggans a little bit better. But I liked it. I like this change because it's more intuitive and it makes the Hornet a little bit better.
I ask you a question to show you how bad this change was. Can you think of a situation where you get a Spire instead of another Conclave?
I mean, late game, I see lots of Shadow Flyers when it's time for dragons.
In Dragon versus Dragon fights, that's the only thing where you actually get
Yes.
Shadow Flyers.
I'll ask you a
You start,
question. Is there a world where Shadow Flyers deal 100% of their damage in the area that Spriggans are also viable?
yes.
I mean, without making
Shadow, Fly,
Spriggans
Shadow
massively
Flyers
tanky.
Shadow Flyers were Spriggans were the meta in the first in the
You're.
Paling patch.
This is
They
true.
were incredibly oppressive actually, and the Shadow Flyer did full damage in
But
an
we
area.
were talking literally 2 days ago about how making a few Spriggans to help against Shadow Flyers now is becoming a thing, right?
Yeah, but that's not a good interaction. You make Spriggans because the Shadow Flyer does so little splash damage and is so awkward to use that you just basically suicide the Spriggans just to randomly tank for Shadow Flyer instead of them hitting your dragon. That's not a good interaction. That's not something like, wow, this actually like, wow, the only purpose of the Spriggan is to be sent as a suicide taker of Shadow Flyers, and the only purpose of the Shadow Flyer is right-clicking a dragon and trying to dodge everything else.
I like the change. The next one
Okay.
was Hedgehog turn rate. Oh my god. This is almost like me being mean in a way. The old Hedgehog turn rate, 0.4, meant that it spent most, or like, I don't know, not most of a second, nearly half a second turning around. It doesn't even take a person half a second to turn around. This thing had like awful control. Even 0.15 feels a little bit long. I think, I may be wrong. I am wrong because people play Dota, and in Dota, every unit has turn time.
0.25 to 0.5 usually. Most heroes in Dota.
I never got Dota. I thought all the units felt weird. I don't like turn time. I don't like have to think about it. Every unit in StarCraft has very low turn time. The best units to micro, so like Hydras, Marines, Stalkers, Like Marines don't even do a little bit of a turn. They just like you'll see them like shoot that way to a unit that's directly in front of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really microable, really fun units have really low turn rates. The reason I said this is almost like me being mean is because this felt so awful. I don't know how anyone like programmed this and was like, cool, we'll do that. The other thing is functionally it reduced the range, especially against it functionally reduced the range. Let's say against fiends, because in the time it takes you to turn around to shoot the fiend has gotten closer to you. So functionally, they actually changed the range, and then they functionally changed the range by making the turn rate so much lower. Anyway, they undid a lot of that. They made decreased the turn rate. You and I actually have talked about hedgehogs for hours and hours
Why?
now.
Yeah. Why are hedgehogs back? I think hedgehogs should be removed. I genuinely don't like. I hate this change. Not because I don't think it's a good idea.
No.
I don't think hedgehogs should be nerfed by making them unplayable. As in, they're so awful to turn that you don't play it. But hedgehogs are an incredibly problematic unit. They're I think top 2 units that I hate the most, behind of course Lancers, obviously. The hedgehog is a close second, and for the longest time, I think was one of the worst designed unit I've ever seen. And I keep playing against hedgehogs nowadays. I still think that I've never seen a unit that creates as little counterplay as the hedgehogs. Impossible to catch, faster than everything, outranges most things, and those things that it does not outrange, it can either escape from very easily from us airborne, or in the case of Gon, do so fucking piss poor damage against the hedgehog that it doesn't it just doesn't work. I hate playing against hedgehogs. Hedgehogs are incredibly annoying to play against. They give incredible map control. They give incredible kiting. They are useful early into late game. They even counter air now very well. They are one of the most busted unit of all time. There is so little counterplay, so little interactability with this. It feels like a Cyclone, a Hellion, and a fucking Phoenix all together.
In any case, they were not fun, and now they're a little bit more fun. The last change is one that I think you will agree is a good change. We talked about it a lot.
This one I like.
So to explain the problem and what this fixed, the problem was that fiends, from splitting a brute, so brutes changed from you had to push the button to split them to now on death they always split. But there wasn't enough difference for the skill expression to be worth it. So whereas before you would you were really incentivized to split a brute because it's got you 2 fiends versus not splitting it, which got you 0 fiends. There was no real difference between letting it die and splitting it yourself, aside from that you could deny veterancy and deny a fiend if the unit was infested. Whereas this change meant that balance swung a little bit more, and you now get a fiend with slightly more health if you manually split it versus slightly less health if you let it die. It also nerfed infest very slightly, I think was a really good change.
Yeah.
They also fixed the move speed, so from 6 to 7.
Yeah, that was done because you got outranged by dogs.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't chase dogs. You couldn't chase cars.
Yep.
You couldn't chase anything. It was incredibly weird for them to change this movement speed. Was my most hated change about the Finch. It wasn't even like they tried to sneak it in. No, I think they just forgot. In the actual patch notes at the start, they did not point this out.
Yeah, I don't think they snuck it. I think they just didn't mention it.
Yeah.
I will say the fiend is really hard to balance, and will continue to be, because the interaction with the really high DPS versus the speed and the low cost means that it's
the cost
very
is quite
strong
high
for run bys and that sort of thing. The cost went up, and I did consider putting that as a change that I liked, because I did like
the cost is very high.
It is, except that you can infest the map and you get free fiends from the map.
Yeah, but that's a problem with infest, not with fiends. Like the actual cost of the like for example, for comparison, a Zergling is 25 minerals. A fiend, if you're using it like as immediately splitting, etc., is 75 to 50, depending if you have the upgrade or not. That's more than twice, like 3 times or 2 times as much as Starcraft for a unit that is quite a bit worse than the Ling. Well, mostly because of the cost.
I did like the cost change, and I thought that was good.
Yeah, I mean.
Anyway, Now we're gonna do the
but
bad.
I really like this. I really like this change. I wanted to actually praise you for choosing this. I consider putting it
Thank
in
you.
mine
Thanks for the approval. It means so
because
much.
I think this it's not the most elegant solution ever, considering this was taken by a Reddit comment. So the Reddit people are gonna think that now they're design genius all of a sudden. And if I read one more dumb Reddit post about clown, clown, what was it? Clown clave. That was such a
I've
banger
forgotten about
post.
the clown cave. Oh
Yeah.
dear. Yes, the
For
clown
for,
cave.
for clown drop, no, clown drop into clown for clown caves. What the fuck was it? Amazing Reddit post.
Absolutely amazing. These are your not fun changes. There's one missing, but it's too big, so it will have to go on the next
Yeah.
slide.
Yeah, these are the first two are together actually. There are three actually. So the first two I put together, I hated this change. I didn't hate this change because I thought they had a bad impact over the game, but I hated these changes because to me they show the unwillingness to change a very clearly problematic mechanic in Infest, and they're gonna do any mental gymnastic or any design gymnastic possible as far instead of just fixing the actual problem. No one thought that speed camps or resource camps were problematic, if not for one very specific interaction, that being Infest. The problem was never if the camp only interacts badly with Infest and with nothing else in the game. Why do you think that the problem is the camp and not the Infest? Clearly, I hated this change because I know what they're gonna. I know what the idea was. The idea was we don't want to change the Infest because that's too big of a design change, and that refers for new patches. And they said we are gonna try to fix the meta around it. But I hated it. I hate it because it changed the way certain matchup feel. The fact that, for example, now if you manage to sneak a speed camp in Inferno versus Vanguard, it's harder to take a turn because it gives less money. I hate the fact that now control of the map feels worse, even though it's already too strong. Like, I wouldn't have a problem with this if the purpose of this change was made in a context of map control is too strong, we need to nerf camps. But that's clearly not the case because you have the health camp that is now insane. So that is not like that. The only shifted map control in favor of one race that can abuse the health camp more than the other, and that also made it super map dependent in stuff like Jagged Maw compared to Secluded Groove compared to Broken Crown. And this to me was like the peak of bad design. It was like, okay, we like this concept so much. Everyone hates it, but we like this concept so much, and what makes our game unique. So we're gonna bend over backwards to keep it in. No, rework Infest. Make it a poison type of ability. I don't care what you do. Just don't make it like this, because at the moment it feels terrible. It feels terrible as the Infernal because all of your power budget is in a fucking gimmicky in a gimmicky snowball mechanically, where if you are behind you feel hopeless, and if you are ahead you steamroll by moving everything. What the fuck? How is this? Like, okay, I'm gonna publish. Eventually, I'm gonna have to make a video about Infest. I know. I already know.
Yeah,
I'm hoping. My current plan is that I'm not gonna make it this season. Maybe next season of the
to
Sign
see what
Dives.
changes. Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna change it, and maybe I won't have to bitch and whine about it for 2 hours. So maybe I don't want have to make the video at all if they just fix it before I make it. So I'm giving them one more build before I drop a 2-hour long rant about fucking awful the emphasis. No, jokes aside, this is the reason why I didn't like this one. Moving on, this a contender for worst change that I've ever seen. How to take a cool unit and make it a bad unit. So, I need to calm down. I'm gonna invoke Monk in this one because Monk said something really smart. And I liked it. I think it was smart. It was such a good idea. And I don't understand why he says it. And then everything else that he does, oh well, not he does, or the team does, goes opposite. So Monk said, famously, I bring this up all the time. He thinks boring, simple units are the ones that create the most interesting choices, the most meaningful interactions. compared to overcomplicated, overzealous, overstated started unit with 20 abilities, etc.
Mhm.
Right? Great, I completely agree. So why did we take a unit that was perfectly fine and worked quite well in its simplicity, and we made it a fucking gimmicky all or nothing unit? The current Magmadon is one of the worst units I've ever seen. It's so bad. I hate it so much. It's a unit that has two modes. Either it's fucking destroying your army, or it's completely useless. There is no in between. It's literally like it's like looking at another version of the River somehow, except even more clunky, even worse. This is why? I swear to God, if I see one more read by Spartak telling me that this change was good, I'm gonna go insane. Spartak, this was terrible. This and this fucking sucks. It's a terrible change. It's good. It's cool thematically. I get it, but this is fucking awful because it went from a unit that had a value that was no more or less.
Breathe, deep breath, do one.
What?
Explain particularly which change, because there's like how many points here? Like 8? Point to 7? I don't know. But just explain what the ability used to be, what it is now. For the people at home, who I'm sorry to interrupt your rant. I'm sure they were all loving it, but just so they got a little bit of context.
Okay, so it used to be that the Magmadon was a unit that had a ability and a passive. The ability was a charge with a stun, as in you charge from point A to point B. It wasn't instant, but it was
and it wasn't really far.
quick.
It was similar to the Vulcan ability.
Yeah, it was not that far. It was fine. And then it would stun and do a little bit of damage in everything in the area that it would land. And the passive was that every third attack, if I remember correctly, or even every attack, I can't even remember if that got changed. No, I think it was always like this. Every third attack, it would do area damage around itself. So, let's talk about why that design, while great, and I loved it, I thought was some of the most fun I've had in a video game, had some problems, which I'm not gonna deny. So one of the problems were Magmans were objectively too strong. There's no doubt about it. I don't think it was a design problem. I think you could have fixed it by removing the stun or reducing the damage, reducing the health.
Or reworking the stun like they did in these changes. In these changes, they put the stun behind an upgrade. You could just put the stun behind an upgrade.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the stun part you mean specifically.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. But why did it work? It worked because you had a unit that was pretty slow, pretty big, pretty clunky, and you give it a partial solution. What do I mean by that? It meant that you couldn't move Magmadons because they would just get stuck and do nothing. What you could do was use your charges as well as you could to dive in the enemy backline. Now, that was too strong. You could have changed the damage. You could have changed the stun direction. You could have changed the direction of the actual charge to make it slightly slower, for example, to allow for more counter. There were a lot of ways.
If it had like a wind up and then you could see where it was going to charge to, for example.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that the design itself was not. I think it was good because it made the Magmano be always kind of generically useless, like a baseline of 50%, for example, because it had decent stats, it will do decent damage.
Tanky,
like
yeah, did some damage, yeah.
Tanky, etc. But it was pretty high damage, actually. It would just,
but melee, so it could get kited. So
yeah, it could get kited, etc. And then it would once in a while, you could have increased the cooldown of the charge, or made it lock behind an upgrade instead of the lasso. Well, the lasso was kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I didn't mind it.
Yeah, but good usage of the Magmadon would allow you to dive into mineral lines, dive into backlines, and actually get some damage done. What did they do? They removed the charge. Now, the Magmadon has a different ability. The ability is it tramples. So, I have to explain how it works properly, because this is a fucking awful idea. And I don't understand why they went with it. Actually, I do understand why they went with it, but they're wrong. Now, it does damage in a splash area around itself. So it thrashes around and does 150 damage over the course of 6 seconds in a circle around it. And if you have an upgrade, it also gets stuns for very little, very often.
Yeah.
Okay.
I say every time. The trample animation is so cute. It's so cute.
Very good
It goes
animation.
like dunk, 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 dunk. It's really cute.
It's cool. The other very important thing to mention, because this is central to how the ability works,
Mhm.
is that while the Magmadon is thrashing or is trampling, it moves everything around it, or rather, it has
But-
like such a high move priority that the Magmadon trampling, when you try to make it pass through other units, it will move everything backwards and just get
it like bounces them out of the way.
yeah.
But it's worth saying
Yeah,
that
yeah.
it does this to friendly and enemy units.
Yes, that's
Yep.
both.
Yep.
So, Lorin, but this sounds cool. Why do you have a problem with this? Because something sounds cool, it makes the units more complicated. Now you have this instead of a simple charge ability. Now you have this trample, you have the stun and stuff. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's better design. Why do I hate it? Because this made the Magmadon, from a unit that had a power baseline of, let's say, 50, 60, 70%, whatever you want to say, to 100 when used correctly, to a unit that is either 10% or 150%. This is the first problem. What do I mean by that? What it means is that Magmadons are completely useless except where they're overpowered. There is no in between. So a Magmadon against Exos, completely useless. Does nothing, gets cutted forever. A Magmadon dropped on top of Exos, 150%. The Exos disappear.
I got so mad about this. I think I've lost even more hairs. It's so irritating. It's so hard to play around, partially because of the Doombringer, which we haven't really talked about, but we will talk about later.
Yeah.
Trust me. But yes, it's like if I see a Magmadon, and I was playing against this guy who, like, I'm not trying to be mean, wasn't that good. He accidentally, or on purpose, I don't know, used all of his tramples. So I see he's got like 4 mags, and I know they haven't got any trample, right? So I'm like, cool, I can start kiting, I can focus fire them, and, you know, I have a decent number of lancers, so they will die. And then all of a sudden, there's a Doombringer behind me, Magmadons drop out of it, immediately they're trampling. I have 0 time to react. I can't really do anything about it because it's already in melee range. So now all my units get stunned and die, and it doesn't feel great. And
Yep.
I think this is your point, where if you're not using them well and you're getting kited a lot, they may as well not be there. There could be any other unit and they'd be doing better. Versus
Absolutely.
when they're on top of your army trampling, they are insane and do so much damage. I will say the other thing is dropping them in mineral lines also turned out to be absolutely insane.
Dropping them in mina. Yeah. Like the biggest problem of the Magmadon. So this is the first problem. Another example of this is how much of the power budget of the unit is in those 6 seconds. Why do you have a problem with that, Rainbow? Isn't that the same as the charge? No, because the Magmadon was actually a decent unit before the charge. Even without the charge, or once you do the charge, the Magma itself was actually pretty scary. It was tanky, that had a lot of damage.
Yeah, kind of like an Ultralisk. It was like it was
kind of
melee,
like an
and you didn't want it
Ultralisk,
near you, but it wasn't like it was decent if it did get near you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, when the Magmadon is not trampling, it does absolutely fuck all. It's ridiculous how bad they are at actually doing what they're supposed to be doing once they don't have the ability. So, you use the ability, the opponent dodges it as it's supposed to happen, like you can kite, they have some counterplay. Well, you have a sitting duck. You have 250, 150 worth of resources. Does fuck all. It doesn't even tank well because it doesn't have that much health, surprisingly. And the Weaver does that job, or even honestly, Brutes do that job 20 times better because a Brute has a much higher health pool, even without
with
counting
no gas
the feet.
cost. Yeah.
Even just 2 Brutes have more health than a Magmadons if you start including the fins. Don't even get me started if you get the upgrade.
And
don't even get me started.
No gas cost, and they're the same charge from the same building, right?
So it is to charge for one,
yeah, okay.
But that's not a problem at all. Like, that's completely irrelevant because you can get 1 extra iron volt, etc. This went from a unit that was very unique and had a pretty like specific role to a unit that has no role except being abused with the Doombringer. Another thing that is ruined, by the way, is Infernal versus Infernal. Infernal was already all about the Magmadons. Don't get me wrong, was already dominated by Magmadon versus Magmadon spams, but this got even worse because now you cannot ever engage because a Magmadon is insane defensively and completely useless offensively. You can never attack, you can never push. It used to be fine when it dealt damage to buildings too, because at least offensively it will be just as good as defensively or close to it. So you could push. But now that they fixed that bug, which I think should have been a feature, honestly, unironically, now you just cannot push the Magmadon. Does absolutely nothing when you push. And when you defend, a single Magmadon gets on top, because when you defend, you are getting out and your opponent is pushing you in. So his Magmadon is coming towards you and you are already escaping because you are defending, right? So you are opening the concave. He has to go towards you, so your Magmadon goes in the opposite direction of his army and meets it in the middle. So one Magmadon, like it's just terrible. It completely. I hate Inferno versus Inferno because it was like it used to be my favorite matchup, but now it's terrible because of that. And then we have Ritual. So this is a small nitpick. I've already talked about this before.
So this is why
I
it had to
think
be its own slide, because there are
yeah,
a million
I'm
points
not
here.
gonna talk
Well,
about
no,
each
we'll talk about
one.
them individually. Yeah.
Yeah. What actually, like, I didn't know how to, what part to crop out. But the crucial thing is basically the first line. Readers can now be found on the top panel bar. I'm gonna choose this line as an example of everything, but really this is a generic ritual problem, right? Not necessarily the fact that they're on top of the bar compared to the Shadow Zone, obviously.
Though you are also not a fan of that.
Yeah, but that's personal preference. That's not design. But that's bad design. No, that's personal preference. I wish there was some
An
other
option,
things like
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly, I think the reason why I'm so annoyed by it right now is because it's so buggy. If you use like Control W and Control E, especially like 3 out of the 6 are super buggy and can be get super bug with the hotkeys because they did not code that properly.
Mm-hmm.
But my problem with it was we put a non-insignificant portion of a race power budget into global spells. All of the spells are global. Well, not really. The turret used to be semi-global in a sense. It's now not anymore.
Yeah.
But what I mean by that is that they don't have a limit to be cast, or they are not circumvented. There's already a problem with the previous rituals, but now this got emphasized even more. Why is this a problem? Well, it's a problem because you can say, well, this is nice. It's skill expression. I'd rather my skill expression be something that I can rely on consistently instead of rituals. Rituals are very inconsistent skill expression. What do I mean by that? Well, there are situations where properly using the effigy makes a big difference, right? And there are situations which,
You might need to explain what the effigy is briefly.
the effigy is a small totem with very little health that you can put anywhere on the map and spawn script for 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Can get killed by one hit on anything. So you use that to recharge the white bar, the white health of your units while you're out, not close to your own shroud, etc. Then you have the super tower, which is just exactly what it sounds, a super tower that you can spawn in. That's a no-brainer. You just use it and it does so much damage. It helps you defend so much. I'd rather have real units, not static, weird, gimmicky static defenses. Why is so much on my power budget on the things? There are some that I like. For example, I don't necessarily mind the Hellspawn Resurgence, and the Dragon I think is gonna be moved as a unit anyway. So I don't think I think that's like a temporary
It's placeholder.
thing.
It's there, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't like how much this game now felt focused on the Animus, especially because it makes for some unintuitive interaction. For example, when Hellspawn Resurgence was broken, losing more, if you were just all-inning, you had more units, you would lose more units than your opponent. You would be like, oh, that's a good trade, actually, because now I have more Animus that I can use to use more spell, and they matter so much. This was also a problem when,
and if I have
all the infest was in the game.
And if I have a conclave proxied, which is what I did a lot in the early days of the thing, I would just have 3 gaunts really close to your base, because I can just do the resurgence. You've held the start of my push, and now I can just do the resurgence, and here come the rest of them.
Or don't underestimate, for example, Nightfall Infestation.
Yeah, so that's the global map.
Yeah, no, I think it's
That's the infest. AoE interest.
The AoE
Mhm.
infest. Because that one is currently not that good because how much it has been nerfed. But when it was instant, it was the most busted spell in the
Yeah.
entire game. And now, like, it feels really weird in general. Like the whole Animus mechanics feels like a lot, as I said, there are so many spells and they're all so quote unquote important that not using them is a significant disadvantage, which encourages you to use Animus and like to go around the map, etc. Which I don't necessarily think is terrible design, but it feels really bad to play, at least from me. Like it feels bad. It feels like I have to rely on gimmicky and stuff to hold a push. Like my holding a push is incredibly reliant on having the turret. Me attacking is incredibly reliant on me using the Shadowfall to cover the map in Shroud, or to use the effigy in other situations. Like it's just weird. It just makes it like
So this is more
Hellspawn.
you saying that you don't like the rituals because you're not opposed to like spells in general, I guess.
I'd rather them be more utility niche situation spell.
Hmm.
Similar to Vanguard, for example. Now, Vanguard has a problem with stuff like the shield. Well, two
Well,
of
we'll
the three are
talk about
more
that
busted
later.
than now. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But for
Let's talk about that
the
now. I'll switch
yeah,
the things over. Here we go. Hopefully this is the right three.
these
Cool.
are the worst for you, right?
These are the ones I wasn't a fan of. We'll start because we're already talking about it. The top two are
Yeah.
both rituals for Vanguard. I don't know if they have a name. Spells? Don't know. The top one is Shields Up. This at the time I didn't think was that impactful, and I'll tell you the only reason I thought it wasn't that impactful is because it requires tier 2 command centers, which there was no reason to get a really fast tier 2 command center until the Hornet became really strong, and then what you ended up having was, or still have to be honest, are really fast Hornets that have an 1,000 damage shield over 10 seconds. 1,000 damage is fucking crazy, but especially when you consider the number of units that can actually shoot up is very small. So there's no way to actually do 1,000 damage to that unit.
Functionally, I've never seen a shield broken on a
No,
Hornet.
no, I've never seen it on any unit. I don't think.
Yeah, it functionally make a unit invulnerable for 10 seconds,
It
which is
might as
not that
well
big of a
say make a
problem.
unit invulnerable.
It's not that big of a
Yeah,
problem when you have 200 units, but when you have one strong flying unit,
yes, it's really painful. There are a few things that that I didn't really see. You might have said this at the time, but I didn't really see as like didn't foresee them being such a huge issue. The first one I'll say is that if you put it on a unit, I think you said this, but after we'd already played the patch for a little bit. If you put it on a unit, it doesn't matter which unit. If we're in a fight, you as the opponent facing this spell have to be aware which unit your units should not be shooting. I've said a lot of double negatives and things there. What I'm trying to say
basically,
is, this fight
yeah.
starts, you've got a bunch of gaunts, a bunch of brutes, a bunch of crabs, and they're all shooting at my front line of lancers. And my lancers are going to die. I don't have a favourite lancer to put it on. I can put the shield on any lancer, and if, let's say, half of your gaunts and 2 of your 4 crabs are shooting at that lancer, it's taking no damage that otherwise would be being dealt to the rest of my army.
Especially with the crabs, that's a little big problem.
Especially for like really high DPS units like the crabs. They
and the other problem,
become you end up wasting a load of DPS on the shield. Yeah.
the other problem is when you put, in my opinion, this is also atrocious when you put it on a Vulcan.
Yeah.
The front Vulcan.
Yeah.
Because now you don't only have something that absorbs an infinite amount of damage, you have something also that fucking destroys my front line
Well,
while
and your
being
backline.
invulnerable.
Yes.
And my backline, and my everything, and my asshole gets teared apart.
And any damage you did do to it, it now I can use the medtex to heal it back up. So if you got it down to like 100 HP, I can just heal it back up. So I haven't even lost the unit after all of this. I don't remember, I might need to go back and check what I said on the podcast. I don't think I loved it at the time. I might be wrong. I just didn't really think it was going to be impactful or as impactful as it's turned out to be. Right now, I think this is one of the worst kind of ideas.
To be clear,
you called
plays
it.
Vanguard.
I do play Vanguard.
Like this is not an infernal balance.
No, it's not me. No, not at all. And it's toxic in the mirror as well.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so
No,
stupid. It's so annoying.
I just wanted to make sure, because otherwise we will forever get attacked. Arta only plays Vanguard, and he still thinks that this is
I
super
haven't played
bad.
Inferno since like the first week. Yeah,
I completely
think
agree with
it's
everything you said.
yeah, I think it's really bad design. I find it really irritating. There's no counterplay or anything that you're like,
Yeah, there is nothing you
but
can do.
I could EMP to get rid of it. It's like, no, that unit just can't die for 10 seconds. Okay, I guess I'm fucked. It gives you really awkward micro trying to like not focus that one unit, but especially let's say when you're kiting away from, even in like Vanguard versus Vanguard, I've got a bunch of exos and your front Lancer has the shield on it. It's really hard to stutter step and a click on a unit that isn't the front one, because if I just stutter step regularly by attacking the ground, they'll all shoot a unit that cannot die.
Yeah,
so
but more
so that was all
importantly,
wasted damage.
this
It's
also
so much more
fucks
not
with
stutter.
Hellborns or units like the Atlas that have slow attack speeds and slow animation. So the Hellborn, just focus fire with the Hellborn. Well, that means that for 8, 9, 10 seconds, my Hellborns do not attack because they are cancel their own attack. Then they have to move in position, getting stuck on everything and each other. Every single time I've tried to like focus fire with the Hellborns, I lost them because they get stuck. They just don't work as you want them to. They just don't do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah,
but like but even with units that are faster.
Yeah, I'll say even.
Like
yeah, you go.
How do you dodge a brute? Like how do you prevent a brute from attack? Like how do you do the dog, for example?
Yeah.
Or a hedgehog? Like those are units that are like, or a lancer. Like how
do I stop my Lancer hitting his invulnerable Lancer? But I'll also say even playing the shield doesn't feel good. It's just set it and forget it. There's no like choice, let's say. Because you just have to use it, especially in the mirror, because you know they're going to use theirs. So you're just waiting for him to use his, and he'll probably put it on a medic if I'm trying to be like cute and focus on medic or something. Like I've said, put it on a Lancer while I'm trying to stutter step away. And it doesn't really feel often like there's a good choice. You either just put it on a frontline unit that's going to tank loads of damage, or a plane because they have no or very weak anti-air, and then I just by default win the kind of air war.
Yeah.
It feels really impactful if you're doing something really cheesy early with the planes, for example, in a really annoying way where the opponent is just like, oh well, I guess that Exo's dead because there's nothing I can do here. Anyway, I think I've harped on about this one enough. I don't like it. The second one, and this one is a bit weird. I'm not convinced if it's OP. I didn't love Bob Overcharge in the first thing, the first kind of alphas and betas, because you just like push it and now your workers can't die. We have seen actually more kind of play around this with Doombringers as an example that I'll come on to later, and kind of dog play where like if you force me to overcharge in the natural, I now can't do it in the main. So now, there's some kind of more vulnerability in my base that is less defended. My particular problem with this change is Bob Overcharge now increases construction speed. And this change I don't like. I like it and I don't like it. I have very ambivalent views on it. I like it because it gives Vanguard a lot of flexibility. And it can often feel like when you're in a defensive position, the bunker takes so long to build that you can overcharge and your workers won't die, but you're still dead. Like I'm still not getting a bunker up. I'm still not stabilizing. The reason I don't like it is because it makes the game very unintuitive. And early on, especially, you could tell who was very new to the game because they weren't overcharging their workers to build their buildings at the start of the game. And then a lot of the game becomes about playing around the construction speed increase, which again, I'm not completely hating, but I don't know, it just feels very...
I just hate it because like you can say for like stuff, for example, you can only expand when you have to overcharge.
Yeah. But really high level Vanguards just do everything on a 25 energy cycle. Yeah.
And that sounds like cool and stuff, but it's not. It's very limiting. And it means that, like, for example, getting an overcharge, like accidentally using overcharge in the wrong situation, when your opponent forces you to use the overcharge, doesn't only like feel terrible because now I'm gonna be more exposed as it should be, but I also feel terrible as in now I cannot make production for 25 energy worth of cycles, which is a lot actually.
Or like now I can't take my third because I've already used my overcharge in the main.
Yeah.
And I don't want to pull 8 workers and wait so long when I could just overcharge and pull
Yeah.
4 and still get it done quicker.
Yeah,
So,
in my opinion,
yeah.
the way you fix this is you just bring a bit more construction speed to everything and reduce the extra construction speed on the overcharge. So I will just remove it even. Because you know how much
I think just
actually...
make make bunkers quicker and just do
No,
that. Because I didn't just tailor it to the thing that you're trying to fix. And if you think that Vanguard is not good enough defensively, so you want bunkers to be made quicker during overcharge times, then do that. But otherwise, get rid of it.
I disagree completely. Actually, I think that would be a terrible idea, because I think bunker should be done slowly, because the purpose of a bunker is that you get it by scouting, and then you see that something is coming, and then you do it. Like, you don't understand how frustrating it is that no amount of actual damage can be done, or no amount of all-ins can ever work at tier 1 at things. Not even as like, oh, they should be beta, but like they can't even conceptually work.
Yeah,
because
there
you
is no
overcharge,
opportunity.
make a bunker. I cannot deny the bunker. I cannot kill it quickly. I cannot do anything.
No.
And you are doing it reactively. Like, you didn't scout, you didn't see anything, but I cannot punish you because you can make a bunker instantly. That's one of the most frustrating things that I can ever see.
But in that case, I think the bunker build time should be decreased, because at the moment it is painfully long. It really
I think every building should be build time should be decreased.
Well, I'm glad you agree with me on this one. I thought this was a controversial one, but
I don't think it's a controversial. I hated this one. I think it's too much power on the Bob overcharge. I think once again, I don't
it
like.
Just feels very like it's two things at once, right? It's making your workers more tanky and more aggressive for when you need to pull them to defend, which does happen. And I think without, if we just got rid of it, let's say, I think Vanguard would die so often, or their openings would become so safe, and then I don't know, the game would change a lot. But it also added a very strong utility. It would be like if mules also, I don't know, gave your supply depots more health or something. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, it's both things, it's both ends at the same time. I think
but also...
Yeah.
No, go on, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think if you split this and make it two things, it could be playable. But at the moment, it feels unintuitive to new players, and it feels too identityless, if that's a word. Don't know.
Yeah, it's split design, similar to the Lancer that if you remember,
or cars, maybe,
conversation. Or cars, exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing that I have to say is that I don't even like the Bob overcharge, like even in this purely defensive thing. Not because I think it's overpowered, so I don't think it is. As I think you are correctly identified the fact that if that was not in the game, you will die to a drop instantly, which would feel very unfortunate. Even that's literally the case in Inferno versus Inferno right now. But the thing that I really dislike is that this, like, when you send like 20 fins and you overcharge with 12 workers and you win the fight against my 20 fins with only the workers, it feels terrible. Like, what's even the purpose of me sending units if the overcharge is so strong?
Yeah, I think people would say it was to bait out the overcharge, and then you have to go in later and try and punish. But again, in this case, the bulk construction speed...
During mid to late game, you tend to hold quite a bit of energy.
Yes, but also now the construction speed would mean that they would now know that base was vulnerable, and they would start spamming buildings to make him less vulnerable in that location.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then you're also in time to go with your army or split something. Like, it's because it lasts so long too. That's the other thing, right? So like, there's very little, like, you force an overcharge, which is damage, to be fair, and if you have enough fins, you are gonna win the fight. I'm not denying that, but it feels really, really weird. Where, for example, stuff like making turrets and like every turret can be killed. Like, if I have 3 turrets in his main, for example, which I'm not saying that turret rushing should be made. I don't think it should, to be clear. But if I have 3 fully made turret, it seems ridiculous that the guy can pull his workers, win against 3 turrets, and not lose a single one with the proper micro. That seems ridiculous to me. Like, it's very, very frustrating. Creates some very unintuitive interactions. Where I think
and workers should be vulnerable, and to have basically a spell that makes them not only not vulnerable but also better than aggressive units just feels weird.
I think that most of the problem is the damage, honestly. I feel like without the damage, it wouldn't be that much of a problem because you still have the time to catch up if your army is somewhat closer.
I can't disagree. I think the armor is really strong just because what you can do is set them on auto repair and then A move them, and they'll all repair each other, and then you just never lose any workers. So they're not then fighting, but as soon as your army arrives, you're just guaranteed not to lose any workers. So there's times when I've been playing Vanguard versus Vanguard, and I've got a bunch of Lancers into a base that was undefended, and I'm like, cool, they're going to chop up and they're going to get me some really good worker kills. And I look back and all of my Lancers have died. They haven't lost a single worker. It's just like, why did I even... Why? Now I'm losing.
This feels like a planetary, except it's available from literally the first second.
And then it's like the only good use is to make a planetary as soon as at the start of the game because you have to, because it, I don't know, makes the areas, the units around it build faster.
It's really weird.
Yeah, it's a weird one. The last one is a sticky one. I again have ambivalent feelings about this one. The last two changes I'm not really bothered about. It's the top one. The Doombringer is the dropship for Infernals. It's probably too tanky. Maybe too fast.
Too fast, too tanky.
And the recall is very weird.
I don't think the recall is overpowered. It's actually kind of...
I think it's weird. But I think the design of the maps in particular also really helps this unit. Essentially, the change that I've highlighted here is that it can load units while in mobilized mode. The Doombringer has two modes, kind of like a Warp Prism. Similar to a Warp Prism, it has like Siege and Unsieged. It can only drop units while it's sieged, which is not like a Warp Prism. But while it's sieged, it also gives like a shroud area. So, the functions to give the units in it more white health, like every other shroud does. What the change they did was you can move it into unsieged mode and pick units up into it. So you only had to drop it to get the units out for like a fraction of a second. It was just it just drops and then you can pick it up straight away instantly. You don't have to, obviously. You can sit in the shroud and it's, there's function to not lifting it immediately. The reason I didn't like this one is because it makes playing around the drop even harder, especially as Vanguard in the early game where you have little to no anti-air, so the drop can hit about 4 minutes. I guess another kind of change that was associated with this one was moving the Doombringer to the Conclave. So yeah, the drop can get to your base at 4 minutes, when you quite often will only be on Lancers, and then it's, like we said, too tanky, too fast. This change I'm ambivalent about, because it makes it really annoying for the Vanguard to play around, because it will drop the units, then the units can kind of run through your base, stutter stepping, and then they just hop back into the Doombringer, and now they're safe floating in the sky somewhere where I can't do anything about it. What I will say is the siege mode up and down feels really clunky for the Infernal player, and I can recognize that having it being able to move and load makes that interaction very
I mean, I can tell you the way,
but
I can tell you an easy way to see this change.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally the Hedgehog. Like, it's that. I agree. It's completely that should be in the game. Like, the Doombringer shouldn't be nerfed by being fucking awful to use, just like the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
But the unit is clearly as incredibly annoying to play against. Should have completely be gutted in other ways. This the way I see this is the same way I see the Hedgehogs. I agree with the change in the sense that the Hedgehog should not be nerfed by the Turnit. But God, now we have to deal with Hedgehogs again, which were a bad design. And similarly, the Doombringer was a bad design. It's poorly made, and it should not be nerfed by the awkwardness of it, but it should be nerfed other way. So on one hand, the change itself is good. I would make it too, but I would hold other things to reduce the problem.
I think if that change was done in isolation, it would be fine. But no, I think if it was done in isolation like it was, it's not good. If it was done with lots of other aggressive changes to, balance the unit more overall, I think it would have worked out fine. Okay, we're at 2 hours. Can we really quickly do the 3 things that you'd like to see in the next patch? Okay.
Yeah, I'll be super quick. Let me find them again, because
I've got them here. I'll read them for you. Number 1 is fixed pathfinding.
Number that's 2, no brainer.
Yeah, and I agree with that one. Number 2 is fix Magmadons.
Yeah. So number 1, fix pathfinding, no brainer. Pathfinding is terrible, makes the game feel bad. Number 2, fix Magmadons or rather rework them. As I said, I've explained before, I hate the current design. I think they're boring. They're like quote unquote fake exciting, as in, oh wow, you have this cool unit that does a lot, like that has this powerful ability. It's bad design. And number 3, I think it's change the Lancer and the Hornet, right?
Yes. You said make
Yeah,
them
yeah.
less generic in particular.
Yeah, the fact that I dislike both of these units because I think they are way too generic. They cover every possible role that the unit should be covering, so they feel like a fusion of several units, right? Like a Lancer is everything from like the
A Zealot,
Spearman
a
to
Stalker, yeah.
yeah, like it's like 20 different things at once.
Mhm.
And at the same time, it's also like in a weird sense, it's similar to stuff like a Roach. It's very tanky and hard to
Mhm.
kill. And that I've explained, like there is this design dive
There's a
or
whole
that same
video.
problem.
Well, it's
Yeah,
on the channel. Go and find the Lancer video. See
design
the small
dives
units.
by
Yeah.
Lorimbo Lancer episode 1, and the Hornet same thing. It's a Oracle, a Void Ray, and everything in between at the same time. Done.
Okay, I agree on the pathing. Pathing was something I flagged to you during probably the first alpha we played, when stuff was getting stuck on trees and my cars were getting caught by like 2 units somehow. And I'm looking at it like, how is that stuck? And then, but it's stuck somehow. So yeah, pathing I agree with. I will say, let's think about Infest a little bit. Let's spend some time on Infest
Pretty good.
and yeah, and see, because 3 units don't feel great, and they put a lot of kind of emphasis on stages of the game that I think are bad. Actually, I've got 2 for my last point, which is not good because we're out of time. But first change, some of the maps need some big changes. There's a lot of dead space on a lot of the maps, and my thing that I'm pissed about when I'm saying this is you can float a Doombringer off to the corner of my base where I can't see it, but it's between my third and my main, and you can then it's Schrodinger's Doombringer because it's either there or you've recalled it, but while I don't have vision, it's both. So I can't I can't like pull my units away and be like, he definitely recalled that, right? And I can't but I can't leave my units there because there's a chance that there's nothing there. It's so annoying, it's very dumb. And also I will say this is obviously a bug, and the guy who did this was obviously bug abusing, but you can also land the Doombringer and have shield on your units off the side of the map where again I can't see and I definitely can't do anything about it. So that's annoying. The other thing I will say is we need to do something like the dog. Dog versus dog in Vanguard is not a fun matchup. It's a bit like Lingbane versus Lingbane, but like not really, and not in any of the ways that I actually enjoy playing Lingbane versus Lingbane. I don't find dog versus dog particularly fun and exciting. I find it really snowbally and annoying. I think the dog in general is quite toxic in the early game. I said this to you, in a time when people are focusing on getting their build order down and trying to be like, okay, and now at 17 supply, I'll take my gases and this sort of thing. There's now just like an annoying little nibbling creature in your base that's just like flashing off. It can actually kill workers, but more than that, it's just like irritating. And I think for new players in particular, having that in the game is very rough. The other thing I would say about the dog is it really does limit the options for both races, because I get to see your entire base. I know how many workers you're supposed to have. So from the start of the game, I know what you're doing. In, let's just say, Starcraft, for example, where it has to be a conscious effort to scout, you get a lot more counterplay and a lot more therefore options around that. For example, we even get to the point where people are playing like proxy 12 pool, because you'll go into my base and not see a pool, and now you're convinced that I'm not choosing when I am, because I do actually have a pool. I'm not saying that's a real build, I'm not saying that's anything, I'm just saying that when you have options for scouting, the game opens up, whereas at the moment there is no option. The dog is there at the start, you have to use it, you have to send it, you get to see everything that either Vanguard or everything that Inferno are doing, and that really reduces the kind of dynamic feel of the game, the speed of the game maybe, which I think is just missing out on a trick. And I think a lot of people obviously don't love playing against cheese, and that's fine, but at the same time I think cheese is a really important kind of factor towards balancing the game. We should maybe do a podcast talking about cheese. Or maybe it might just be a 10-minute video because I don't think we disagree with that much on it.
I mean,
Anyway.
it's an interesting take. Yeah.
Those are my kind of 3 points. Any thoughts?
I think those are fine. I think like those are things that I consider putting in Infest. Like the problem is that there's so much, right? As I said, I would need a million
It's a
things.
beta. We could spend a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with everything. Infest should be looked into. I find it quite interesting. Actually, about like the map design, I feel like it's something that is not brought up very often, even though it's quite impactful. Think about the difference in balance between Secluded Groove, very Vanguard favored, and Jagged Maw, very Infernal favored. Like it's those are interesting points. I like them. It's just as
There's
I
one
said,
more thing that we need to shout out.
Yeah.
Because we're recording this before the end of Vulcan Cup.
Yes.
Vulcan Cup, 100% win rate. This guy.
Yeah, I had to put him in against some memers to get some wins because like, say the truth. Why did you participate? Say the truth. What did you not want?
I didn't want the did not participate label on my profile on my Wikipedia for the rest of my life.
Unfortunately, I'm just too strong and too good at this game. I was all killing
kill.
everyone.
Yeah,
I will kill everyone.
Apart from that game you lost, the first game that we played.
The first game we ever played, I was nerves. Vanguard OP anyway.
It was a warm-up game. Warm-up match.
Warm-up game. Yeah.
Anyway,
we're doing well in the
for us.
Team.
We're doing well. We've got to play against Team OP, which is going to go about how you would expect. They are very OP.
They are called Team OP, very OP.
But yeah, cheer for ATRT, please. And tune into that. It's really good fun. I don't know. I'm having a really good time kind of participating, playing in it. I didn't play that much, but it has been really good fun. And our team has been really good fun as well. Looking forward to see how far we get. Bye, everyone. Oh, follow us on Spotify.
Follow us on Spotify, like and subscribe.
Goodbye.